Hello and welcome to the last round of Swiss here at Grand Prix Oakland, round number 15. Maria Bartholdi and Reed Duke in the booth. Vidianto Wijaya on Izzet Phoenix and Johnny Daniel on Burn here in round 15. Both players at 2 losses. So fighting for a berth here, Reed?
Yeah, so this is a great matchup that we've seen a number of times already today. Really, really close. I believe we've seen both sides win, although I know for sure that Izzet Phoenix has been on the winning side. I can't say for sure if Burn has actually pulled it out, though Johnny Daniel himself has made it close in this very matchup earlier today. We already have one Izzet Phoenix player locked for our top 8. That's Eli Cassis, Vidianto Wijaya looking to join him.
Yep.
And we have 2 Burn players playing for it. So we could see 0, 1, or 2 copies of the Burn deck in top 8, depending on how things shake out.
Wow, such interesting results coming out of the end of this tournament here. I just want to know what's going to happen if 2 KCI players have to play each other. All right, we are underway here for this match. As well, Grim Lavamancer falling to a gut shot. Here, suspend a Rift Bolt Lava Spike U here from Johnny Daniel.
So Johnny Daniel with a pretty nice draw here on the play. The only thing that could have gone better for him is if he had had a haste creature on turn 1. The difference would have been he could have unloaded some damage right away, and potentially a 2-toughness creature could have survived through gut shot. But Wijaya able to answer Johnny Daniel's turn 1 play on a 1-for-1 basis with gut shot, putting himself in pretty decent position, and here he's going to Faithless Looting to sculpt his draw. No Arclight Phoenix is hitting the bin, but one card to keep in mind for later is a Maximize Velocity, all set to go for
nice. So a card like Gut Shot, really useful in a deck like Izzet Phoenix?
Gut Shot is, I'm a bit of a hater. It's not one of my favorite cards. I think it's a very low impact. But it is nice in this deck that's so much about casting high density of spells in a single turn for those Arclight Phoenixes or Thing in the Ices. And when you're able to actually get a good, clean exchange with Gut Shot, it's a really good, efficient card. I mean, Wijaya able to answer a burn player's non-land card at a 1-for-1 basis. That's a win, because Burn is a critical mass deck that sometimes has trouble assembling all 20 points of damage and doesn't want to trade off resources. And then Gut Shot also at other times, not particularly in this matchup, but other times can provide a pretty nice tempo advantage, allowing you to kill off an opposing creature and cast a different spell on the same turn.
You know what was really interesting, too, is when we saw it be that critical 3rd spell with just 2 lands in play to bring back 2 Arclight Phoenixes from the graveyard.
Absolutely, yeah, that comes up. That comes up often. The Phyrexian mana spells and the Manamorphoses, these free spells, really unlock some very, very exciting draws out of Izzet Phoenix. Meanwhile, we've gotten sidetracked a little bit, and this game is not the type you want to get sidetracked for, as it's going fast. Really, really nice turn 3 for Johnny Daniel here with Monastery Swiftspear into Boros Charm, unloading 6 damage, leaving him with a nice threat in play. And Wijaya, the screws to him already down to 6 life.
Wow. 6 life, Vidianto Wijaya, 19 for Johnny Daniel here, and we've got a Manamorphose resolving here for Wijaya. But, like you said, 6 life, a precarious number for anybody against Burn. Another Manamorphose. And a draw, finds a land. Vidianto Wijaya has 3 Grand Prix top 8s with a legacy win in Denver. Johnny Daniel is from Vista, California. Was 10-0 today and looking to turn that run into a top 8.
That's right. Johnny Daniel was our last player with an unblemished record earlier today at 10-0. And since then, he's put up 2-2 records, still in really nice striking distance. Win will put him in top 8. He's off to a good start in this game.
There's a Swiftspear of Wijaya's own here. And a Thought Scour. And a card like Swiftspear, a really interesting inclusion in this Izzet Phoenix deck because it's able to unload so many spells so quickly. It can kind of get out of control, sometimes even more so than Burn. Swift Spear down now, and Wijaya attacks in with his own. Pumped up quite a few times by the number of spells we saw there. There's a Lightning Bolt from Johnny Daniel, and an Eidolon of the Great Revel. Wijaya falls down to 2, Johnny Daniel at 15, and he scoops him on up. And that is Johnny Daniel taking game number 1 here in round 15.
Yeah, just how he drew it up. Light the opponent on fire, don't waste any time, don't waste any points of damage. And now we go to sideboard to see if Widianto Wijaya can flip the script at all.
So we've run into this matchup a couple of times today, and do you think one of these decks is more heavily favored after sideboard? Are we able to turn the tide enough, or is it just as close as it was main deck?
You know, it's not that much changes. There's some marginal upgrades on either side, and I guess the biggest change is going to be access to a couple of permission spells, Dispel being very efficient and effective from the Izzet Phoenix deck, maybe Spell Pierce coming in, and then Johnny Daniel being able to marginally upgrade some of his cards into things like Searing Blood, maybe touching into Rest in Peace, but we're looking at the same kind of game. One card that could dramatically change the matchup is Path to Exile from the Burnside, because that represents an answer to those 4 toughness creatures, Thing in the Ice and Crackling Drake. But Johnny Daniel didn't bring Path to Exile. He's very focused on the burn game plan, not really worrying about opposing creatures.
I mean, why would you? You just throw everything at their face. Come on. Something interesting about the Izzet Phoenix deck, too, that we've touched on a few times today is its resilience against sideboard plans. A card like Rest in Peace, which you might think is lights out for, a deck that relies, on getting things back from the graveyard, namely Arclight Phoenix, but also has cards like Faithless Looting, that sort of thing, is able to kind of stabilize and live on without them.
Yeah, if memory serves, the very last time we saw Johnny Daniel playing this match, Game 3, he played a turn 2 Rest in Peace on the draw, and then was forced to concede on the third turn of the Izzet Phoenix player. And that's because, Rest in Peace lines up really well against Arclight Phoenix, really well against Faithless Looting, but Thing in the Ice is still the main problem card in the matchup, and Thing in the Ice Rest in Peace is woefully ineffective against Thing in the Ice.
You know what I noticed? I was playing the Izzet Phoenix deck recently, and I was just getting hit with so many dismembers, and sometimes out of the main deck.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a world where Izzet Phoenix, probably alongside Krark-Clan Ironworks, maybe Bant Spirits and Humans, it's distinguishing itself as one of the best and most successful decks in the format. And what that means is if you want to bring creatures, you need a way to kill Thing in the Ice, whether that be Dismember. We saw Ili Kassis with Flame Slash, a techie card, Lightning Axe, some of these Izzet Phoenix players bringing, but you need to configure your removal suite to be able to handle Thing in the Ice, or else you're going to have a hard time.
That is the danger of having a great deck, big target on your back. Although it seems that Krark-Clan Ironworks has managed to escape unscathed from that kind of sideboard tech taking it down.
Yeah, Ironworks, certainly the winner, the most successful deck so far here at Grand Prix Oakland. Izzet Phoenix could definitely make a run for it if Wijaya is able to join Ili Kassis in the top 8. But for now, 3 Ironworks players all in prime position to make the top 8. That's scary. And I think how good Ironworks is, it's compounded by the fact that it becomes a really popular choice among these elite, very well-prepared players. So you wind up with a situation where you have some of the best players in the room piloting this super, super powerful combo deck, and the results just are disproportionately inflated in that way. You wind up with 3 copies of the same deck in the top 8, despite Modern being a very, very diverse and generally balanced format.
Can I ask you a controversial question, Reed?
Please do.
Do you think it's too good?
I tend to be a little more conservative on making claims like that. I like to see the natural... I like to see nature run its course, so to speak. I like to see survival of the fittest. I like to see the players adapt and see if they can beat a deck through
Sure.
the avenues that are currently available before we start talking about things like bans. So, I mean, I think Ironworks is a really, really good deck. People have some valid complaints about it, but I don't think we're quite ready to reach for bannings. Although I know, as you set up, that is a controversial topic, and some people will forcefully disagree with me. That's fine. You're welcome to disagree.
All right,
but
we'll keep the
that's
hammer in the
my
back
take.
pocket for now. All right, we're drawing our opening sevens here. Game number 2, Johnny Daniel and Burn up a game over Videonto Wijaya with Is It Phoenix. Although we have seen this match go the opposite way today. It's going to be a pretty interesting one. Players deciding on mulligans here, and Burn's definitely going to take one. I don't think I saw any mana on that opening hand. Videonto Wijaya keeps 7. And Johnny Dan will shuffle up, go to 6 with the Scry, if he decides to keep. At this point in the tournament, too, Reed, are you just worn down after playing so much Magic, and this, match meaning so much for these players?
Yes and no. I think the excitement's really, really probably settling in for these players, and this is the situation that you're playing for. This is what you dream of when you enter the tournament at 9 a.m. on Saturday morning. You're hoping to be in this position playing for top 8 in round 15. So these players, I think they're still ready to go. They're having fun. They're enjoying themselves. Yes, the pressure's on. Yes, it's been a long weekend, but I think they've got one more game in them.
I don't know about that, Reed. I feel like my dream position at this point is shaking hands into the top 8.
That's true, but also fairly ambitious.
Yeah,
There's
true.
not too many players that are able to do that. Only in this case 4, and for some of them it's not 100% guaranteed that they'll appear in our top 8.
There's going to be a bit of a sweat for this top 8. It might get messy.
Yeah, the concession for Hunter Cochran could mean that we have 9 players fighting for 8 spots. So while I still stand by everything that I said in our pre-game, that the players that drew are looking really, really good, it is not locked. It is not a mathematical certainty that they'll all be in our top 8. Just looking good.
And we are underway here in game number 2 with Is It Phoenix versus Burn. Monastery Swiftspear, nice opening here for Is It Phoenix. We'll see how much work that Swiftspear can manage to do throughout the course of this game. Match that with the Rift Bolt on suspend here from Daniel, and I do see a Rest in Peace in his hand. Land number 2 here for Wijaya.
By the way, the presence or absence of Monastery Swiftspear in the Izzet deck is a personal taste kind of thing. Some people prefer to play it a little bit more of a control deck, focus on those hard-hitting threats like Thing in the Ice and Crackling Drake. Others, like Wijaya, choosing to be a bit lower to the ground, sacrifice power for speed and efficiency, and I've seen both have a lot of success so far this weekend.
You know what's interesting here too is the Swiftspear getting in for a couple of points of damage so far in this game, and a spell potentially used defensively here against this Rift Bolt.
Yeah, now Rift Bolt is going to target the Swiftspear, and it's okay from Wijaya's standpoint because he can actually... excuse me. Looks like the Rift Bolt was targeting Wijaya himself, and it was met with Spell Pierce.
All right, interesting. Eidolon of the Great Revel pulled to the front of Daniel's hand.
Generally a very strong play on turn 2 for Burn. However, facing down Monastery Swiftspear after you've taken a mulligan and been on the draw, you start to worry about your own life total. And remember that Eidolon of the Great Revel is a symmetrical effect. Both players can wind up bleeding out life points as a result of the Eidolon. So in this position where Johnny Daniel is actually losing the life total race, he should be a little bit careful with this.
Eidolon of the Great Revel, in fact it is for Daniel here. Back over to Wijaya. And yeah, we've seen people take quite a lot of damage off their own Eidolon of the Great Revel. And in the end, they paid pretty dearly for it. Lightning Bolt here, going to take care of it though.
Still a fine exchange from Johnny Daniels' perspective.
Manamorphose kicks off more triggers here for the Monastery Swift Spear, adding a blue and a red mana, getting a draw. Now, why do you say the Lightning Bolt was a good trade for Johnny Daniel there?
Well, it was a 1-for-1 trade. Lightning Bolt's a really efficient and effective card in the matchup, and Johnny Daniel got 2 points of damage out of the deal. And that's the way he's constructed his deck. He seems to be really, really pleased with those exchanges. Really valuing the fact that the incidental damage can add up. Things like Searing Blaze, Searing Blood, Smash to Smithereens. These are cards that he's brought in 4 copies each in his 75. And a little bit of a trade like that, a 1-for-1 trade where the opponent takes 2, that's exactly what he wants.
Swing in with the Swift Spear there once again. And you talked about this at the beginning of the match, Johnny Daniel on a 14, by the way. Maximize velocity in Wajaya's hand.
Yeah, now, Vidianto had some interesting decisions that turn, and I can't say that I would have played the turn exactly the same as he did. He played Manamorphose, and in the face of a little bit of uncertainty, not knowing what card he was going to draw, he produced 1 red mana and 1 blue mana. He certainly could have considered just producing 2 blue mana, and as it turned out, he drew Thought Scour. So 1 red mana going to waste there. But even the Thought Scour found him maximize velocity, and he elected not to cast it. So for a turn that seemed pretty simple, he just sort of cast a couple of spells from his hand and attacked, he actually had a lot of decisions.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what I found when I was playing the Izzet Phoenix deck. The cards seem fairly simple on their face. Sure, you're drawing, you're scrying. Great, you take what you need. I found it is not easy at all. So what exactly is the maximized velocity doing? Are we powering out our 7/8?
That can certainly come up, although Thing in the Ice is able to attack the turn you transform it.
That's
unless
true.
That very rare mid-late game situation where you cast Thing in the Ice and 4 spells all in the same turn. So you could use maximized velocity there, but I think its primary use is to pair with Crackling Drake, just like it does in Standard.
Sure.
That's pretty impressive. But also, you know, this deck dumps so many cards into its graveyard via Thought Scour and Faithless Looting that it's sometimes nice to just look down and have some incidental value, something you can cast as if you need a 3rd spell for Arclight Phoenix, a 4th spell for Thing in the Ice, whatever it might be.
Swift Spear falling finally here. We've got a Searing Blaze and a Lightning Bolt from Johnny Daniel, with Jaya falling down to 12. Daniel at 13, as Vijaya continues to power through his deck here. Taking a look at another 2, Maximize Velocity and Lightning Bolt in hand. And he likes them, he's going to leave those ones on top.
So this is shaping up to be a close game. Both players have done a nice job neutralizing the opponent's threats. And now both players sitting at a reasonable, if not comfortable, life total, and it's going to be whoever can top deck better. Rest in peace, shutting down some potential avenues for Wijaya. No more Faithless Lootings to smooth the draw.
And he knew that was on top of his deck after a peak last turn, so Arclight Phoenix comes in, tapped and attacking.
All right, so Johnny Daniel really looking for one of his Searing Blazes or Searing Bloods.
Daniel down to 10 after that attack. Draw, go. Pretty nice there to have that bolt in hand, too, for Wijaya. Daniel at a virtual 7. Make that 4. And he passes the turn.
Ooh, he picked up Lightning Helix. That's a really nice
that's a good
card
draw.
in a close game like this. So he can point it at the Phoenix or at Wijaya himself, but either way, the 3 points of life going to be very, very valuable.
There's the Lightning Helix.
Surprised to see Vidi not cycling Manamorphose in response. Finding a Dispel would have been really nice there. Spell Pierce, not quite enough. Pretty poor at this point in the game.
Swift Spear for Daniel. Met with a lightning bolt from Wijaya. Ooh, that's a nice draw. Arclight Phoenix comes
Definitely 3 damage right up front and demands an answer.
Gets in, knocks Daniel down to 7. He finds an answer. Arclight Phoenix is hitting the exile zone, not to come back here. Wijaya will pass the turn, as will Daniel. Each player reaching for a way to deal those final few points of damage here in round 15. Manamorphose from Wijaya here for a draw.
There's Dispel, so he's all set against the next burn spell Johnny Daniel might find off the top of his library. That
Faithless Looting.
Faithless Looting, yeah. Is that alternative art?
Yes, I think it is. Yeah. I'm not sure where it's from, though.
I didn't recognize it at first.
I'm trying to find it. From the IDW Comics, that's where it's from. Life totals remaining static here at this point in the game.
Yeah, so this is largely a top deck battle, but really it's quite in favor of Wijaya, just based on the number of cards in hand. He has Dispel for the next instant speed burn Johnny Daniel might cast. He has Lightning Bolt for the next creature Johnny Daniel might cast. So we're going to have to see Johnny Daniel substantially outdraw Wijaya over the course of a number of turns here if he's going to win this game.
That seems unlikely given how many more cards Wijaya is seeing.
Unlikely, but not impossible. Although with Thing in the Ice now found for Vidi, things get a lot better. I wonder if he'll wait a turn before deploying it in order to protect it with Dispel.
Where are my Drakes at?
Yeah, he would love a Crackling Drake here. Remember, that counts cards in exile, so even in the face of Rest in Peace, it's a highly effective threat.
Wijaya taking some time over this decision.
And this is a creative solution to the Dispel problem, which is that he's going to use Manamorphose on his main phase so that he can leave up blue mana.
Not suspicious at all. So there's a Rift Bolt that targets that Thing in the Ice.
Now Johnny Daniel, he's got to be aware that Wijaya made he did some somersaults in order to leave up that blue mana. I don't think he's surprised to see Dispel here, but it looks like he both had a nice card in his hand and drew a nice card, as he's going to finish this off with Searing Blaze now. And that's a great exchange for him. He's going to stay in the game, even up the life totals, and Wijaya is going to have to find yet another threat.
And there is the Searing Blaze from Daniel. Thing in the Ice down. Wijaya will have to go back to the deck to find another threat. Daniel has managed to deal with a Thing in the Ice and a couple of Drakes at this point. You know what else does it? 2 Lightning Bolts, Reed.
Yeah, and notably, Johnny Daniel had to, well, he did not have to, but he made the judgment call to use his fetch land alongside the Searing Blaze, and that was what put him down to 6, meaning that Wijaya could win the game with a flurry of burn spells instead of having to find a creature.
Wow, a burn player getting burned out. Poetic Justice. That evens things up here. 1 game apiece between Vidianto Wijaya, Johnny Daniel. They're Phoenix and Burn players.
And you know what was wild about that game was neither player ever stuck a threat. That was all
No.
based on incidental damage from Arclight Phoenix chipping in and then getting killed, from fetch lands and shock lands, from Eidolon of the Great Revel triggers. There was never a creature that stayed in play to attack multiple turns back to back to back. Instead, it's just these small advantages adding up and players finding ways to chip through damage even against an opponent that's packing a lot of removal.
And you know, that's interesting that you say that too, Reed, because a lot of times one of the questions you have to ask yourself as the Burn player is, do I care about this threat for my opponent, or am I just going to ignore it and go face?
And what I love about Johnny Daniels' configuration is he has reduced his necessity to answer that question by packing cards that do both at the same time. 4 copies each of Searing Blaze and Searing Blood.
Elegant solution there to that problem for Johnny Daniel. Changes potentially on the way here as we enter Game 3 for a couple of these players. This is the last round of Swiss, so our top 8 is coming up, and we are obviously not set yet on the top 8. We do know a few things, but a lot of questions still hang in the air as to what exactly the decks and people we'll see in our top 8 are. We do have the potential for 3 Krark Clan Ironworks to make our top 8. And the deck has just dominated here, at least on camera this weekend, and seemed excellent. We've gotten the chance to see Matt Nass play it, and he's becoming very famous for the deck. And as we've said a few times already on stream, has a 90.1% win rate with the deck at Grand Prix.
That was as of this morning after his 9-0 performance yesterday. So today his record was, it seems, 3-2-1. Good enough to make the top 8, but perhaps not to preserve that astronomical legendary win rate. But we'll see what he can do in the top 8.
Just a question, if we do happen to see a couple of KCI decks facing off against each other, what exactly are they trying to do? Just outrace each other to the win?
It's more or less a pure race. Each player is going to be able to bring in a couple cards off the sideboard that can interact a little bit, negate probably being the single best card in the matchup, but largely it's going to be, die roll dependent, who has a good draw, who can skip a turn by virtue of Mox Opal or Mind Stone.
See a cosplayer there in the background of our feature match area, and we've had some fun with that this weekend. Of course, Grand Prix Oakland being the main event of Magic Fest Oakland, where a lot of other stuff has been going on. We had some Ultimate Masters side drafts happening. Saw Marshall playing in one yesterday, or excuse me, on Friday, with a really sweet red-blue deck that he was just able to churn through. And of course, we had our Planeswalkers dressed up as Sailor Moon characters yesterday, which was pretty neat to see.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. What's your favorite thing about attending a Magic Fest?
Ooh, great question. Great question. Playing Magic, I think I'm going to answer.
Very good
choice.
Follow
up, hanging out with your friends, having good food, seeing the seeing the cosplayers. I love getting artists to sign cards, if possible.
Yeah, nice selection of artists here at Magic Fest Oakland. A lot of the old school guys, Ken Meyer Jr., Mark Poole.
Yeah.
Notable because you walk through the artist alley, you see those big murals of Birds of Paradise and Kird Ape, super iconic cards from the old days of Magic, and both cards that still see a little bit of play in Modern today.
I recently got my Hyena Umbras signed in pretty spectacular fashion.
Is that Howard Lyon?
Yes. He does this technique where it looks like 3D coming up off the card with gold pens. Oh man, and
cool.
And they're airbrushed. They're beautiful. I played with them at Grand Prix Vegas, the last Grand Prix Vegas, and one of my opponents destroyed one, and I was so sad. Not only because my Hyena Umbra was going away, but because it was so beautiful, I didn't want to put it in the graveyard.
You got to be careful with that. You need to use the version of the card that can allow you to make the best strategic decisions, absent sentimentality.
You're kind of joking probably, but seriously, it's made for some bad decisions because I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. I don't want a mulligan. It's ridiculous. Then again, my whole Boggles deck is ridiculous. First of all, because it's Boggles. Second of all, because it's like foiled out to the gills. We've all made some bad life choices. You know what I mean, Reed?
Yeah. But you got to stick with them. You got to own them.
That's right. Hashtag branding. All right, so here we go. Game number 3, Wijaya versus Daniel. Phoenix versus Burn.
For all the marbles.
That's right.
Pro Tour invitation, Mythic Championship invitation, top 8 appearance, money at stake, prestige at stake. This is what the players came for. This is the big moment.
And we get to get a game 3 out of it too here, so not leaving anything on the table for you here except, of course, Magic cards. Wonder what they're discussing down there.
I hope they're not holding for our sake, because we're ready to see some action.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to go.
Johnny Daniel going to be on the play. He's really looking for a turn 1 Goblin Guide or Monastery Swiftspear, but in general, just looking for the proper mix of lands and spells. The burn deck, really the best case scenario is to see 2 lands and pretty much any 5 cards because the deck is so redundant. If he can have that exact 2 land configuration, he's happy whether his turn 1 play is best case scenario Goblin Guide or medium case scenario Lava Spike or Rift Bolt. Vidi, on the other hand, going to be on the draw.
Are they going to make a decision here of a draw?
It is not crazy. It's risky, but so is playing against a tough opponent across the table from you. So
that's true.
These players can certainly be thinking about drawing. It would result in probably one of them making the top 8, but possibly 0 or possibly both.
Oof, that's a tough decision.
Yeah, the deeper we get into this round, the more uncertain I feel about how our top 8 is going to shape up. I think if these players draw, we'll wind up having 10 players competing for 8 slots, and then somebody's going to be disappointed.
All right, we'll see what these players end up deciding to do here.
Notably, they've been very careful to not look at their opening hands because,
yes,
once there's a mulligan or once somebody, oh wow, that's a handshake.
Sure enough, the burn player's like, you know what? It wasn't all that great. It was medium, but you got to check the rest.
So that the outcome of that match is an intentional draw.
All right,
wow.
There we go. We've got a draw here.
Well, best of luck to both players in the tiebreaker battle. It would be fun to see them both in the top 8, but there's for every winner, there's somebody who's going to be disappointed. So we'll see exactly how things shape up. We probably won't know for another 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, well, at least they were kind enough to give us the first 2 games, So
yeah, I guess we got the best of both worlds there. We got some action, and we got both players, fighting to an outcome that they're, at least for now, pretty happy with.
All right, well, we'll get back to the action here in round 15 in just a minute after this.